What if the life you built, the family you cherished, and the trust you held closest were all built on a lie? Imagine the foundation of everything you believed in shattering with a single discovery. This is the story of Elliot Grayson, a respected sheriff from Clearwater, Missouri, whose world was turned upside down when a betrayal involving his own brother came to light. It started with a casual suspicion, grew into a shocking revelation through DNA results, and culminated in a deadly confrontation that no one could have foreseen. How could a trusted lawman, a father, and a husband find himself at the center of such a tragedy? Stay with us as we unravel the chilling details of a story that explores betrayal, heartbreak, and the consequences of secrets too heavy to bear. This tale will make you question the very nature of trust and the lengths people will go to protect or destroy those they love. Elliot Grayson was the sheriff of Clearwater, Missouri, a man admired by his community for his unwavering commitment to law and order. To the people of Clearwater, Elliot embodied what it meant to serve and protect. He was known for his calm demeanor, sound judgment, and the way he approached every case with integrity. As a sheriff, he wasn't just an enforcer of the law, he was a pillar of the community, the kind of person neighbors turned to in times of trouble. At home, Elliot was equally admired. He was a devoted husband to Lauren, a warm and charismatic woman who supported him through the pressures of his demanding job. Together they were raising 4 children: Joshua, the eldest, who shared his father's sense of responsibility; Robert, the energetic middle child; Kenneth, the quiet and observant one; and Ellie, the youngest, a lively little girl who brought joy to everyone she met. To outsiders, the Graysons seemed like the picture of a perfect family, happy, close-knit, and full of love. But beneath this carefully maintained image, cracks were beginning to form. Unknown to Elliot, betrayal was growing within the walls of his home. While he focused on serving his community and providing for his family, secrets were festering, secrets that would soon come to light in the most shocking way imaginable. It all began innocently enough, with small moments that didn't raise suspicion: a shared laugh, a lingering glance, or an unspoken connection. These seemingly harmless interactions were the seeds of something far more sinister. And when those seeds blossomed into full-blown betrayal, it would set off a chain reaction that would devastate the Grayson family and the Clearwater community. The truth would come to light in a way no one could have predicted, igniting a storm of heartbreak, rage, and violence that would leave lives shattered. This is the story of how the Graysons' perfect life unraveled, and how a man admired for his dedication to justice became the subject of one of the most shocking crimes Clearwater had ever seen. 15 years ago, Elliot Grayson met Lauren at a community fundraiser in Clearwater, Missouri. It was one of those serendipitous moments where paths crossed unexpectedly, leaving a lasting impression. Elliot was already building his career in law enforcement, known for his diligence and principled approach to his work. Lauren, with her warm smile and genuine kindness, was volunteering at the event, her passion for helping others shining through in every interaction. They were an unlikely pair at first glance: Elliot, the reserved and focused sheriff, and Lauren, a free-spirited woman with an ability to connect effortlessly with everyone she met. But their differences complemented each other, creating a bond that deepened over time. Within a year, they were married, ready to build a life together in the close-knit community they both loved. Their family quickly grew. Joshua, their eldest, was mature beyond his years and naturally took on the role of protector for his younger siblings. Robert, their middle child, was the energetic one, full of mischief and curiosity. Kenneth, the quiet and observant child, often seemed to notice him others missed. And then there was Ellie, their youngest, whose laughter could light up even the darkest day. To the outside world, the Grayson family seemed perfect, a loving couple raising 4 bright children. But as Elliot threw himself into his role as sheriff, often working late nights and long hours, cracks began to form. Lauren's life, though fulfilling in many ways, grew increasingly lonely. The pressures of raising 4 children while supporting a husband with such a demanding job weighed heavily on her. She began to feel unnoticed, her efforts to keep their household running smoothly taken for granted. It was during this time of growing emotional distance that Ryan Grayson, Elliot's younger brother, re-entered their lives in a more significant way. Ryan was everything Elliot was not. Where Elliot was disciplined and serious, Ryan was carefree and full of charm. He had an ease about him that drew people in, friends, strangers, and eventually Lauren. Beneath Ryan's charisma, however, was a man who struggled with his own insecurities. He often felt overshadowed by his older brother's accomplishments and the admiration Elliot commanded. Lauren and Ryan had crossed paths years before Elliot and Lauren had even met, though they hadn't formed a deep connection at the time. Still, when Ryan began visiting the Grayson household more frequently, that distant familiarity sparked something between him and Lauren. What started as casual conversations quickly became something deeper: shared laughter, subtle glances, and a growing tension that neither of them could ignore. Lauren, feeling increasingly isolated, was drawn to Ryan's attention in a way she hadn't anticipated. He noticed the small things: her new haircut, the effort she put into preparing meals, the exhaustion in her eyes after a long day with the kids. He made her feel seen in a way Elliot, preoccupied with his responsibilities, no longer did. For Ryan, the connection with Lauren was intoxicating. It wasn't just about attraction, it was about stepping out of Elliot's shadow, proving to himself that he could have someone that his brother had. At first, he justified his growing feelings as harmless, but over time, those feelings turned into something more dangerous. The affair didn't happen all at once. It was a series of small step-stolen moments, quiet conversations, and shared confidences that neither Lauren nor Ryan could walk away from. They convinced themselves they could keep it hidden, that their bond was private and wouldn't hurt anyone as long as it remained a secret. But secrets have a way of growing like cracks in a foundation that spread until the structure collapses. The more time Ryan spent at the Grayson home, the more those cracks deepened. Family gatherings became opportunities for Lauren and Ryan to steal fleeting moments together, sometimes just a glance or a brief touch, but enough to sustain the illusion that they could have what they wanted without consequences. As the years passed, the affair became woven into the fabric of their lives, unnoticed by Elliot. Focused on his duties as sheriff and providing for his family, he never imagined the betrayal that was unfolding right in front of him. Lauren and Ryan's deceit became a house of cards, fragile and teetering, waiting for the slightest gust of truth to bring it all crashing down. Little did they know, that moment of reckoning was closer than they thought. What they believed was a carefully hidden secret would soon unravel in a way none of them could have predicted, setting off a chain of events that would shatter their lives forever. To those looking in from the outside, the Grayson household seemed like any other loving family in Clearwater, Missouri. Elliot Grayson, a respected sheriff, was the proud father of 4 children and the husband of a charming, devoted wife, Lauren. But what looked perfect on the surface was hiding a devastating truth, one that would come to light in the most unexpected way. It began innocently enough during a casual family conversation. Lauren, in an offhand remark, mentioned how much Robert, their second-born, resembled Ryan, Elliot's younger brother. She laughed as she said it, brushing it off as a joke, but the comment struck a nerve with Elliot. He couldn't explain why it unsettled him, but the thought lingered long after the conversation ended. At first, he dismissed it as paranoia. He had no reason to doubt Lauren or Ryan. Both had been part of his life for years, and he trusted them completely. But as days passed, the remark gnawed at him, replaying in his mind at the most unexpected times. He began to notice small things he had never paid attention to before. The way Ryan interacted with Lauren seemed unusually warm, and the resemblance between his sons and his brother, something he had never questioned before, suddenly seemed too pronounced to ignore. Unable to shake the unease, Elliot decided to put his suspicions to rest. He knew he couldn't confront Lauren or Ryan without evidence. It would create tension and possibly strain their relationships for no reason. Instead, he resolved to take a more discreet approach. Late one night, after his family had gone to bed, Elliot began researching DNA testing. He learned that home testing kits were widely available and could provide the answers he was seeking. Within days, a discreetly packaged DNA kit arrived at a post office box Elliot had rented to keep his purchase a secret. The box sat unopened in his car for 2 more days, as Elliot wrestled with guilt over what he was about to do. He told himself that the test would clear his doubts and restore his peace of mind. Late one night, Elliot carefully collected DNA samples from each of his children. He worked quietly, ensuring no one in the house would notice. From Joshua's room, he retrieved a pencil with faint teeth marks. Robert's bedside table held a straw from a juice box he had left behind. Kenneth's laundry basket provided a t-shirt, and from Ellie's hairbrush, he picked a strand of hair. Lastly, Elliot collected his own DNA using a cheek swab included in the kit. As he sealed the samples and prepared to mail them, Elliot felt a mix of dread and relief. The very act of conducting the test felt like a betrayal of the trust he shared with his family, but the weight of his suspicions was too much to bear. He told himself he would laugh at the results when they came back confirming what he already knew, that he was the father of all 4 children. Weeks passed, and the routine of daily life resumed. Elliot went about his duties as sheriff, trying to suppress the growing anxiety in the back of his mind. But when the results finally arrived, they upended his world in a way he could never have prepared for. The moment he opened the envelope, everything changed. The words on the page were cold and clinical, but their meaning was devastating. Joshua, Robert, and Kenneth, 3 of the 4 children he had raised, loved, and cherished, were not biologically his. Only Ellie, his youngest, shared his DNA. The betrayal struck like a thunderbolt. The wife he had trusted implicitly, the brother he had grown up protecting, had conspired against him in the most personal and intimate way imaginable. Every family memory, birthday parties, holidays, bedtime stories was now tainted by the realization that the foundation of his family had been built on lies. Elliot sat in stunned silence, unable to process the enormity of what he had just learned. The walls of his home, once a sanctuary, now felt suffocating. He thought about the years he had devoted to providing for his family, the sacrifices he had made, and the pride he had taken in being a father. All of it seemed meaningless in the face of this revelation. The DNA results didn't just confirm his suspicions, they shattered his identity as a husband and father. He couldn't look at his children the same way, not because he loved them any less, but because every interaction now carried the weight of the betrayal he had uncovered. But more than the betrayal itself, it was the people behind it that cut the deepest. Lauren, the woman he had vowed to spend his life with, had deceived him for years, and Ryan, his own brother, had violated the trust and bond they had shared since childhood. The 2 people Elliot loved most in the world had conspired to destroy everything he held dear. In the days that followed, Elliot tried to maintain a sense of normalcy, but the anger, hurt, and confusion were impossible to ignore. His mind raced with questions. How long had the affair lasted? How could Lauren and Ryan have looked him in the eye, knowing what they had done? And most importantly, why? As the truth settled in, Elliot realized there was no way to move forward without confronting the betrayal head-on. He needed answers, and he needed them now. What he didn't realize was that the confrontation he was about to initiate would spiral out of control in ways he could never have imagined. Elliot Grayson was a man used to handling high-pressure situations. As a sheriff, he had faced tense moments on the job that required composure and quick thinking. But no amount of training could prepare him for the emotional storm he was about to face in his own home. The DNA results, confirming his worst fears, had shattered his trust, and the betrayal by both his wife and brother festered in his mind, growing into an unbearable weight. For days after receiving the results, Elliot tried to maintain a facade of normalcy. He went to work, interacted with his children, and tried to piece together the scope of the deception. But inside, the emotional toll was escalating. Every glance at Lauren or Ryan brought a fresh wave of anger and hurt. How long had they been lying to him? How could they betray him so completely, all while acting as though nothing was wrong? On a seemingly ordinary afternoon, Elliot came home earlier than usual. He had taken the day off to sort through his thoughts, hoping to come up with a way to confront Lauren and Ryan. As he pulled into the driveway, the familiar sight of his Clearwater home, the place he had worked so hard to provide for his family, felt different. It no longer felt like a safe haven but a stage where the ultimate betrayal had played out. As he entered the house, the air felt unnaturally quiet. The children were at school, and the usual background noise of the household was absent. Moving through the rooms, he noticed the faint sound of muffled voices coming from upstairs. At first, he hesitated, his heart pounding as he tried to convince himself that nothing was out of the ordinary. But the gnawing feeling in his gut told him otherwise. Elliot climbed the stairs slowly, his footsteps deliberately silent. As he approached the master bedroom, the voices grew clearer. He could hear Lauren's laughter, light, familiar, but now grating, and then Ryan's unmistakable voice responding. The sound of their shared intimacy, once something Elliot would have brushed off as harmless, now struck him like a dagger. Pushing the door open, the scene before him confirmed every fear he had been trying to suppress. Lauren and Ryan were caught in a compromising position, their betrayal no longer hidden behind years of deceit. For a moment, the room seemed frozen in time. Lauren's face turned pale as she saw Elliot standing in the doorway, the DNA results still fresh in his mind. Ryan, ever the smooth talker, started to speak, but the look on Elliot's face stopped him mid-sentence. The rage that erupted within Elliot was unlike anything he had ever felt. It wasn't just anger, it was a culmination of years of trust broken, love twisted into deceit, and the humiliation of being lied to by the two people he had loved most. Without thinking, Elliot reached for the firearm he carried as part of his duty as a sheriff. The room erupted into chaos as Elliot raised the gun, his hands trembling with a mix of fury and pain. Ryan, realizing the gravity of the situation, tried to move toward Elliot, his hands raised in an attempt to calm him down. But Elliot's fury was beyond reason. The betrayal he had uncovered wasn't something words could mend. The first shot rang out, striking Ryan squarely in the chest. He collapsed instantly, his attempt to defuse the situation ending in silence. Lauren screamed, backing away from Elliot, her hands covering her mouth in shock. Her cries filled the room, but Elliot's focus remained on her. The betrayal wasn't just Ryan's, it was hers too. In that moment, Elliot's emotions overpowered any sense of logic or restraint. The pain of betrayal, the humiliation, and the loss of the life he thought he had built all boiled over. Without hesitation, he fired a second shot. Lauren's scream was cut short as she collapsed onto the bed. The room fell into an eerie silence, the only sound Elliot's heavy breathing as he stood over the bodies of his wife and brother. As the adrenaline began to fade, the enormity of what he had done started to sink in. The weapon slipped from his hands, clattering to the floor. The master bedroom, once a place of intimacy and comfort, was now a crime scene. Blood stained the bed and floor, and the acrid smell of gunpowder hung heavily in the air. Elliot stumbled back, his mind racing as he tried to process the irreversible act he had just committed. The faces of his children flashed through his mind: Joshua, Robert, Kenneth, and Ellie. What would they think when they learned the truth? How could he explain to them what had driven him to this point? The sound of distant footsteps broke through his haze. His eldest son, Joshua, had returned home from school early and heard the commotion. From the hallway, Joshua's voice trembled as he called out, "Dad, Mom?" Elliot quickly moved to the door, closing it behind him to shield his son from the horror inside. "Joshua, go to your room," Elliot said, his voice hoarse and unsteady. His son froze, sensing the gravity in his father's tone. "Take your brothers and sister. Stay there," Elliot added, his voice breaking as he tried to maintain his composure. Joshua hesitated but eventually obeyed, retreating to gather his siblings. Elliot, now alone in the hallway, sank to the floor, his head in his hands. The weight of his actions pressed down on him, suffocating and inescapable. Knowing there was no turning back, Elliot pulled out his phone and dialed 911. When the operator answered, he could barely find the words. "This is Elliot Grayson," he said, his voice hollow. I've just killed my wife and my brother." The operator tried to ask questions, but Elliot ended the call. Sirens began to wail in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. When the police arrived, Elliot walked out of the house with his hands raised, surrendering without resistance. The once respected sheriff, a man who had dedicated his life to justice, was now at the center of a tragedy that would haunt Clearwater for years to come. The aftermath of Elliot Grayson's actions sent shockwaves through Clearwater, Missouri. The man who had once stood as a symbol of justice and integrity now found himself at the center of a gruesome tragedy. The community, stunned and grieving, struggled to reconcile the image of their trusted sheriff with the brutal act he had committed. Elliot's arrest was swift and without resistance. When officers arrived at the scene, he walked out of the house with his hands raised, his face a mask of resignation. Inside, the scene told the story. His brother Ryan and wife Lauren lay lifeless in the master bedroom, the physical evidence of Elliot's clear to investigators. His service weapon, the instrument of the crime, lay discarded on the floor. In his initial statement, Elliot confessed to everything. He admitted to discovering the affair through DNA tests and to confronting Lauren and Ryan, which led to the fatal shooting. There was no attempt to deny or excuse his actions. He appeared emotionally drained, his voice hollow as he recounted the events to detectives. The children, meanwhile, were taken into protective custody. The trauma they endured was unimaginable. Hearing the gunshots, seeing their father's despair, and losing their mother and uncle in a single moment left scars that would take years, if not a lifetime, to heal. Joshua, the eldest, tried to be a source of comfort for his siblings, but even he struggled to comprehend the magnitude of what had happened. As news of the crime spread, the community reacted with a mix of shock and sadness. How could someone so admired, a man known for protecting others, commit such an unthinkable act? The details of the betrayal and the affair only added to the complexity of public opinion. While some sympathized with Elliot, acknowledging the emotional toll of the betrayal, others condemned his actions, arguing that no amount of hurt could justify taking 2 lives. The trial that followed drew national attention. Prosecutors painted a picture of a man consumed by jealousy and anger. They described how Elliot, instead of seeking help or walking away, allowed his emotions to escalate into deadly violence. They argued that his position as a sheriff, someone trained to handle conflict and de-escalate dangerous situations, made his actions even more egregious. On the other hand, the defense team portrayed Elliot as a man pushed to the brink by unimaginable betrayal. They highlighted the depth of the deceit by both Lauren and Ryan, arguing that their actions systematically broke down Elliot's trust and mental stability over time. Witnesses testified to Elliot's character before the incident, his dedication to his family and community, and emphasized the emotional turmoil he experienced after uncovering the truth. Despite the defense's efforts, the evidence against Elliot was undeniable. The DNA results, his own confession, and the physical evidence at the crime scene left no room for doubt about his guilt. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict, guilty on 2 counts of first-degree murder. During sentencing, the judge acknowledged the complexity of the case. "This court recognizes the deep pain caused by betrayal," he said, addressing Elliot directly. "But no amount of hurt can excuse the taking of 2 lives. Your actions have caused irreparable harm, not only to your victims but to your children and this community." Elliot was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. For the Grayson children, the sentence marked only the beginning of a long journey. They were placed in the care of extended family, but the emotional and psychological impact of losing both parents in such a violent way was profound. Counseling and therapy became a critical part of their recovery, though it was clear the road ahead would be challenging. Elliot's life in prison was marked by quiet reflection. He rarely spoke to other inmates and spent much of his time writing letters to his children. In these letters, he expressed regret and sorrow for his actions, but he also tried to offer them words of comfort and guidance. "I hope one day you'll be able to forgive me," he wrote in one letter, "even if I can never forgive myself." The case left an indelible mark on Clearwater. It became a cautionary tale about the destructive power of secrets and the devastating consequences of unchecked emotions. Community leaders used the tragedy as an opportunity to advocate for mental health awareness and the importance of seeking help during times of emotional distress. Elliot Grayson's story is one of a man who, despite his strength and stature, was brought to his knees by betrayal. It's a reminder that even those we hold in the highest regard are not immune to the complexities of human emotion. His actions destroyed not only his own life but the lives of those he loved most. As Elliot reflects on the choices that led to his downfall, he is left with the haunting reality of what he lost: his wife, his brother, his career, and the trust of his children. In his darkest moments, he is forced to confront the question that lingers in the minds of everyone who hears his story: was the betrayal so great that violence was inevitable? Or could there have been another way? This case leaves us with no easy answers, only the sobering truth of a family torn apart by secrets, lies, and a moment of uncontrollable rage. It serves as a reminder of the fragility of trust and the devastating impact of choices made in the heat of emotion. So, what do you think? Was Elliot Grayson a man driven to the edge by an unbearable betrayal, or should he be held fully accountable for allowing his emotions to take control in such a devastating way? Can his actions ever be justified, or do the lives he took outweigh the pain he endured? And what about Lauren and Ryan? How much blame lies with them for their role in this tragedy? Could their years of secrecy and deception have been avoided, or was the fallout inevitable from the moment their affair began? This story leaves us with difficult questions about trust, betrayal, and the choices we make when faced with unimaginable pain. It challenges us to think about how much we can truly know the people closest to us and how far emotions can push us when that trust is shattered. If this case left you shocked, take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe the justice system handled this case fairly? Or do you see this as a tragedy where no one truly won? And if you're drawn to stories like this, stories that explore the darkest corners of human relationships, the weight of secrets, and the devastating impact of betrayal, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We'll continue to bring you true crime cases that dive deep into the complexities of human nature, leaving you questioning everything you thought you knew. Thank you for watching, and as always, stay safe and take care of each other. Until next time.